Hello and welcome back to DukascopyTV. It's a Friday, and what better way to end the week than with a look at the potential major economic trends, political events and FX issues for 2013. Joining me now is Tony Nyman, FX Fundamentals Manager at Informa Global Markets in London. Tony, thank you very much for joining me. Now, earlier this week, my colleague was discussing the possible biggest winners and losers of 2013 with Cara Ordway from City Index. But today, before we go on to discuss the year ahead, in your opinion, Tony, looking back at the 12-month snapshot, in terms of FX pairs, what were the biggest winners and losers in 2012?
It might have only moved negatively in the last couple of months of the year, but the yen ended up a relatively big loser. Enjoying underlying strength for most of the year and the first 10 months, the yen later plunged on the reform talk of LDP challenger and eventual new Japan Prime Minister Abe. The dollar yen rose over 10% from mid-October to 88 plus today. So that was pretty much the big loser. Outside of the yen, major currencies were relatively stable through the course of the year, really. Currencies appeared to take it in turn for bouts of short-term strength, such as the dollar during Q3 in its strong data run, the commodity block and the Scandies. We pick out the NOK, the Norwegian kroner, as best performer overall, propped by frothy oil prices, Norway's budget surplus, AAA status, and a relatively strong economy. It made the NOK a safe haven. Elsewhere, we could also give an honourable mention to the euro, despite many predicting the downfall of the single currency in 2012. Euro-dollar actually finished the year a couple of cents firmer.
What about major economic trends and political events to look out for then in 2013?
If we look back at the main issues of 2012, none of them have really been laid to rest. The US fiscal cliff deal, which occurred at the beginning of this year, end of last, was no grand bargain on deficit reduction. And it looks like very soon we'll be back to square one. Well, obviously, there's other issues, whether the EZ can maintain its unity through 2013. And we highlight in particular Germany's relationship with these peripheral nations. And of course, there's already talk of a fourth Greek bailout being required. And again, finally, Abe and Japan. We want to see whether all those mega promises he made during the election campaign actually could translate into concrete action.
In that case, Tony, what do you feel would be the biggest FX issues for 2013?
Many analysts believe we'll see much the same in 2013, but on a slightly less panic-driven scale. From our perspective, we think, yet again, it could be a battle of the ugliest currencies as the world's biggest central banks stay in easing mode. We will be most intrigued by just which central bank twitches first, though, and starts talking interest rate hikes. We might not get the beginning of a tightening cycle in 2013, but we wouldn't be surprised to see some BOE officials, Bank of England, and the markets beginning to talk of a return to more neutral stance in the UK, well ahead of the likes of the Fed, the ECB and the BOJ.
Moving on to discuss speculations and expectations by policymakers of major central banks, what are your expectations for the ECB, for example, in 2013 in solution to the EU debt crisis?
If we look back at December, staff forecasts centred on a 0.3% contraction for this year, and many economists actually fear it could get a lot worse than that. No move is expected in January, but stimulus will be needed fairly soon, and a 25 basis points interest rates cut in Q1, we believe, could well be seen. OMTs-wise, they've not been used so far, but their sheer presence will encourage talk of which country, still most likely Spain, we believe, will cave in first. The ECB seems set to gain a new role as the single banking supervisor, while it also has to ensure that EZ member states' governments carry out their fiscal responsibilities fully. One problem we believe with the LTROs and the OMTs is that it could lead to complacency from some countries and delaying those promised austerity reforms.
What about Japan's policymakers? Are they really willing to do all it takes to win the currency war and get the yen down? Now, the market has placed its bets that they are, but do you agree?
Well, this is by far the most interesting, Rowena. As you say, the new Japanese Abe-led admin has been talking really aggressively on reform domestically and has been just as quick to state its independence to other nations, including the US. We have to admit some surprise that the markets have so readily accepted that these promises will turn into legislation and into real action. But we think the end downtrend is here for some time, and we believe dollar yen could reach 90 in Q1. We suggest keeping an eye on comment from the admin in the coming months, though.
I'm afraid we've run out of time, Tony, but just to get your opinion quickly on it, looking at the week ahead in terms of events and potential market movers, what is striking you as the most interesting?
Well, I guess it's going to be the first ECB of the year. Everyone will be looking out for Draghi and his comments on Spain and the OMT's possible interest rate cuts ahead, single banking supervisor, and member states' austerity responsibilities. They'll all be interesting, and the market will be leaping on those, on anything that comes a bit of a surprise.
Thank you very much, Tony. A pleasure, as always, to have you on DukascopyTV. Viewers, that's all for the moment, but stay tuned to the end of the day. Goodbye for now.